Welcome back to Saturday Agenda. Joining me today is Senator Matthias Cormann, the Shadow Assistant Treasurer from Perth, and in the studio here is Labor Senator Matt Thistlethwaite. Matt, to you first, what does the resignation of Bob Brown mean for the stability of the government?
I don't think it means much at all, Chris. We've got an agreement between the Green Party and the Labor Party, and indeed the independents
But Bob's the man.
process.
Bob's been the front man. He's worked hand in glove with Julia Gillard. Will Christine Milne be just as reliable?
Well, look, there's no doubt that Bob Brown's a person who's made an enormous contribution to the Greens, and I think you could make the argument that much of the following that the Greens have is because of some of his stature. He's certainly been synonymous with the Greens and made a big difference to improving their standing and creating a third force in Australian politics. But at the end of the day, we've got a Labor agenda that we're rolling out. That was an agenda that was developed in opposition. It includes a price for carbon, it includes a minerals resource rent tax, making better conditions for doing business in this country, and we saw some of those reforms entered into in consultation with the premiers yesterday. It's a Labor agenda that we're rolling out here.
Matthias Cormann, is Bob Brown cutting and running?
Well, I mean, Bob Brown clearly was one of the most powerful members of this government. He forced Julia Gillard to break her most emphatic pre-election commitment not to introduce a carbon tax, and now before the carbon tax will have its most toxic impact on people's household budgets by pushing up the cost of living, on our international competitiveness by increasing the cost of doing business in Australia, all of that without doing anything to help reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. Before all of that comes into effect on 1 July 2012, he's leaving the Parliament. So, I mean, I think you can argue that he is in fact cutting and running.
Well, the new leader of the Australian Greens is Senator Christine Milne. Here's what she's got to say.
I think I can step up to the role and lead the Greens, and when someone of Bob's stature moves aside, it means that everybody has to do a little bit extra, and I think what we're going to see now is an empowering of the whole party room and the party across the country to go out there and build on Bob's legacy and actually go on to achieve greater electoral success as well.
Senator Milne said she's going to go and take her message to the bush and to business. I can't wait to see that one. I don't know how the Greens are going to go down in Dubbo and Broken Hill. But Matt Thistlethwaite, you'll be pleased, won't you? The Labor Party, this is good news for the Labor Party electorally if the Greens are less popular under Christine Milne.
Oh, look, it doesn't make a difference to us, Chris. We've got our agenda. It's a Labor agenda, and that's what we're delivering for the Australian public. And I've mentioned some of the policy areas. That's what our commitment to the Australian public is. Look, we're in a minority government, we know that. We were the party that managed to reach an agreement between the Green Party and some of the independents to move our nation forward, and we're delivering on that. We've provided stability in government, and we'll continue to do that regardless of who leads the Greens, regardless of who the independents are. We're rolling out a Labor agenda.
Senator Cormann, as the Shadow Assistant Treasurer, just to move on to another topic, we've seen an interest rate increase yesterday from the ANZ Bank. Are you concerned about this movement outside of the RBA cycle?
Well, under this Labor government, the gap between the official cash rate and the interest rates charged by the banks, standard variable rates charged to home lenders and business lenders, has continued to increase. It was very stable at about 1.7 to 1.8% for the whole period of the Howard government, and it has now gone well in excess of 3%. So the interest rates that people out there across Australia pay for their mortgage on their home loan or their business loan has never been higher than it is on this government now. It has never been higher, certainly under the Howard government.
Well, interestingly, given that you're going on about higher interest rates, we've had a key figure in the union movement speaking out against high interest rates this week, and in fact the head of the Australian Workers Union, Paul Howes, has criticised the Reserve Bank for not reducing interest rates. Here's what he's had to say.
I think it's wrong that the RBA have not cut interest rates. I think they've got it wrong consistently this year. I think an interest rate cut is in the interests of our community and in business's interests as well. Now, one issue that we might need to look at is the charter of the RBA. Now, rightly, they are concerned primarily with inflation. No one's suggesting that shouldn't be a core component of what the RBA does. But I do believe the dollar is something that the RBA should take into consideration when they are making their decisions.
Well, Paul Howes, as we've seen in the past, has been very active when it comes to leadership changes in the Labor Party. Now Matt Thistlethwaite is out there sort of telling the Reserve Bank what to do. Is he overstepping the mark?
Well, I think you have to understand the position that Paul's coming from. He represents members predominantly in the Australian manufacturing industry. They're feeling the effects of the Australian dollar in terms of their export markets. That's pushing up their costs and putting pressure on their members' welfare and livelihood. So
we have a treasurer. There's a Labor treasurer here, Wayne Swan. Why is Paul Howes pushing economic policy in this direction rather than the treasurer?
Can I just add this? When it comes to interest rate settings in this country, we've got the right approach, and that's an independent approach.
So Paul Howes
the Reserve Bank independently set interest rates in this country because we run a market economy. That's why the previous comments of Matthias Cormann were irresponsible. He knows as well as I do that they're set independently, and the important factors.
We were talking about the bank interest rates, the retail interest rates, and that's a very different proposition, and I think you know that.
The Reserve Bank. Cormann, you did chip in there about government spending. I mean, there's one thing that Paul Howes didn't say. He didn't call on the government to restrain its spending in order to keep interest rates down.
Well, the truth of the matter is that in the US, in the UK, much across Europe, interest rates have been hovering between 0 and 1% for the last 4 or 5 years. In Australia, interest rates bottomed out
their
at 3%.
Economies have been smashed.
And at 3% and increased dramatically much sooner than anywhere else, and they've sort of come down to 4.25% now. The point here is it is excessive Labor Party spending in government that has made it impossible for the Reserve Bank to do as much as reserve banks in other parts of the world have done through monetary policy. If this government had been less reckless and less wasteful in their spending, there is no doubt that interest rates could be lower than what they are. But at the same time, as Wayne Swan was putting the foot on the accelerator through excessive fiscal stimulus, the Reserve Bank felt compelled to put the brakes on through monetary policy, and of course that is why interest rates in Australia are somewhat higher than they are in much of the other parts of the world.
There is, of course, a school of thought that the next interest rate movement will be down, and maybe Paul Howes is just positioning himself to claim some credit if that is the case. I just want to go to one other issue before we wrap up the program, and that is that the Prime Minister brought all the premiers and government leaders to Canberra this week to talk about a range of issues, and here's what happened.
Look at that. That's the carbon tax, ladies and gentlemen. Particularly, I say to Queenslanders, that's how much regulation this Prime Minister and this government have brought in. They seem to measure their progress by how much regulation, how much red tape, how much bureaucracy they bring in. If the Prime Minister's sincere about actually taking this nation forward, get rid of this crazy tax, make sure that we can get on and take this nation forward, and particularly I say that for the people of Queensland.
For people who are concerned about productivity, about red tape, about cost, the best way of cutting carbon pollution is by putting a price on carbon, which is what we have done. And indeed, today's discussion was about how, with a price on carbon, less efficient, more costly schemes can now give way because there is a price on carbon.
So the Prime Minister wants to talk about red tape and skills, and Matt Thistlethwaite, instead, she's ambushed by the states over the carbon tax. Is this a sign of things to come?
Well, I note that Campbell Newman's comments were made on Thursday prior to the COAG meeting. Yesterday, in the wake of COAG, he came out and said that progress had been made. So he changed his tune. I think the COAG agreements that were reached yesterday were positive. They will move our nation forward. Again, we've got agreement on a skills reform package, which will importantly ensure that we're investing more and more and working cooperatively with the states to ensure that more people get training, agreement on a national disability insurance scheme, agreement to reduce the amount of duplication associated with environmental approvals, and agreement, importantly, to look at ways to streamline the approval process for major projects in the construction industry. They're all good, positive economic reforms, moving our nation forward in cooperation with our state governments.
But it does seem, and I'll go to Matthias Cormann on this, it does seem that the states, those large Liberal states that now dominate COAG, Matthias Cormann, are now allies with you in the fight against the carbon tax.
Well, Liberal state governments are standing up for good policy. The carbon tax is a bad tax. It's a toxic tax which will push up the cost of living without doing anything to help the environment. And of course, I mean, this government has got a terrible track record when it comes to imposing massive new red tape. I mean, this is a government which has introduced more than 16,000 new regulations, at the same time abolishing less than 100. And this is, of course, a government that wants to give us a carbon tax which will be bad for the economy, while not being any good for the environment. So, I mean, of course, good premiers in states like Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and Western Australia will be standing side by side with us in fighting against bad Labor Party policy out of Canberra, and I welcome that, of course.
All right, thanks for joining us again this week, Senator Matthias Cormann, Liberal Senator, joining us from Perth, and also Matt Thistlethwaite, thanks for joining us as you look at shaping up against the states as well on the carbon tax. And that's all we've got time for today. Join us next week for Saturday Agenda once again. And who would have thought it? We're going to go into the middle of the year, into June, July this year, welcoming a carbon tax, but saying goodbye to the Greens leader, Bob Brown. See you next week.